This is probably going to be long and messy, but I don't know where else to put this. I'm not expecting advice or anything, I can't keep all of this in my head anymore. My son was born 6 days ago. His name's Miles. He's healthy, loud, got this funny little angry face when he's hungry that somehow already looks like mine. I'm exhausted, and my back hurts, and my brain feels like mush, but none of that matters. He's perfect. We brought him home last week. My wife, well, I guess wife, still, applies for now. Her name's Lauren. She had a tough labor, lots of complications, so I told her I'd handle the night shifts. I didn't even think twice. I just wanted her to rest, and honestly, I wanted those late-night moments with him. I thought they'd be something I'd treasure forever. We had baby monitors set up before Miles was even born. One of those things I thought was overkill, but ended up installing anyway because I'm anxious like that. One in the nursery, one in our room, synced, together. Anyway, this happened 3 nights ago, I think. It all kind of blurs together. It was around 2 a.m. I was up with Miles doing the usual, pacing back and forth in the nursery, gently bouncing him, whispering dumb songs just to soothe him, and probably myself too, if I'm honest. The rain was hitting the window in that quiet, hypnotic way, and I almost didn't notice the voices. At first, it was just static from the monitor, which is normal, but then I heard laughter. I thought it was coming from the TV in our room, or maybe Lauren talking in her sleep or on the phone. But it wasn't just her. There was a guy's voice. I stopped moving, like, completely. Just stood there with Miles in my arms, barely breathing. The voices came through the monitor again, more clear this time. Her voice, his laugh. Then I heard her say, and I'll never forget the way she said it like it was some joke they'd shared before, "He actually thinks this baby saved our marriage." I felt this weird buzzing in my ears like my whole head went hot and numb at the same time. My legs literally went weak. I had to sit down in the rocking chair because I thought I was going to drop him. I wanted to believe I'd misheard, that maybe it was some old recording or podcast or something. But no, it was live, present tense. Her voice coming through that tiny piece of plastic in the corner of the room. Then came the second hit. I never loved him. I just didn't want to raise a kid alone. I don't know how long I sat there, just holding Miles, staring at the monitor like it might say something different if I waited long enough. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. There was no big dramatic reaction. I just sort of went quiet, numb. I didn't go to the bedroom. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to know who he was. I didn't even want confirmation. The monitor gave me more than I needed. I wrapped Miles in his blanket, grabbed the diaper bag, my wallet, and my keys. Didn't even put on socks. Just slipped on the first shoes I found by the door and walked out into the rain. It was cold. I remember that part really clearly. And my hands were shaking while I was buckling him into the car seat. He was asleep the whole time. Peaceful. Like the world hadn't just shattered. I started driving. Nowhere in particular. Just away. I ended up driving around for maybe 45 minutes. My mind was spinning, but also kind of blank. Like I kept thinking, what now? But had no answer. Eventually, I ended up in front of my sister's house. I didn't even text her. Just knocked until she came to the door. She looked at me, looked at Miles, and just let me in. No questions. Just a blanket and a quiet room and space to breathe. I sat on her couch holding my son until the sun came up. I don't think I moved for hours, and I still hadn't cried. I stayed at my sister's place longer than I meant to. The first night turned into 3, then 5, then a full week. She didn't pressure me, didn't ask for details. Just made coffee in the mornings, handed me meals I didn't ask for, and helped with Miles when I looked like I was about to fall over. I don't know if I ever actually told her everything in a single conversation. It just sort of spilled out in pieces. Like when I was feeding Miles and randomly said, I heard her say she never loved me. Or when I was washing bottles in the sink and muttered, I think he was in our bed. She didn't react with horror or drama. Just quiet support. A hand on my shoulder. A short, firm, you didn't deserve that. And God, I didn't realize how badly I needed someone to say that. I spent most of those days in autopilot mode, taking care of Miles, trying to keep some kind of routine, changing diapers, making bottles, burping him on my shoulder while pacing the guest room. I was functioning, I guess. But emotionally, I was completely unplugged. I couldn't stop thinking about our wedding. Not the ceremony itself, but the way Lauren looked at me when we said our vows. The smile, the little squeeze of my hand. I replayed it in my head like I was trying to find signs that it wasn't real. Was she lying even then? Was I just convenient the whole time? And it wasn't even like we had a terrible relationship. We barely fought. We went on trips. We decorated the nursery together. We planned baby names for months. I really thought we were okay. And that's the part that keeps cutting deeper than anything else. She didn't just betray me. She let me believe everything was fine, even as she was ripping the floor out from under us. I kept trying to justify it, like maybe she was just venting to someone. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it sounded. Maybe I'd walked into some weird moment that didn't reflect the full story. But the tone in her voice, it wasn't regret. It wasn't conflict. It was casual. Like mocking me was just another Tuesday night conversation with whoever the hell that guy was. I kept checking my phone, expecting some kind of apology or panic from her. Nothing for the first couple days. Then a couple texts. "Where are you? Is Miles okay?" I ignored them. Then came the more aggressive ones. "You can't just take off like that. You're being unfair." Unfair. That word just made me laugh out loud when I read it. I never replied. I couldn't. Instead, I called a lawyer. I wasn't even sure what I wanted. Divorce? Custody? Mediation? I just knew I needed information. I needed options. The lawyer was calm and to the point. I told him everything. He said without proof of infidelity, things would be complicated, especially since the monitor didn't record. But emotional instability, betrayal, general home environment, it all could play a role in custody hearings. I wasn't trying to take Miles away from her. I wasn't even thinking about that. I just knew I couldn't go back. Not to that house. Not to that bed. Not to the version of Lauren who looked me in the eye every day while carrying that secret. I started writing. Everything down. Dates. What I heard. How I felt. Messages I received. I needed to create a record. Not just for court, but for myself. So I didn't gaslight my own memories later on. Because believe me, I wanted to pretend this was all some big misunderstanding. It would have been easier than accepting the truth. But the truth was simple. Brutal. She didn't love me. She just needed help. Stability. And once she had it, she treated me like background noise. The worst part? I still loved her. Or at least, I loved the version of her I thought was real. I was grieving a ghost and trying to build a new life while holding a baby in one arm and my broken heart in the other. I went back to the house on day 11, not to talk to her, not to argue. I just needed to get my stuff. I knew she'd be at work, so I waited until I was sure the place would be empty. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want explanations or fake tears or whatever version of the truth she was ready to sell me. I walked in with a box and a list. Clothes. My passport. The important papers from the drawer in the kitchen. The backup drive with all our photos. I looked around the house and felt nothing. It used to be home. Now it just looked like a staged version of our life. Like someone had recreated it from memory but got all the details wrong. The living room still had the blanket I used the night before the birth. The coffee mug with Dad-to-be printed on it was still sitting by the sink. It didn't make me sad. It made me feel stupid. Like I'd spent the last year writing a love letter to someone who'd already burned the bridge. I left a note on the counter. I kept it short. I heard everything. I'm not coming back. Don't contact me unless it's about Miles. That was it. No accusations, no begging, no drama. I took what I needed, closed the door, and left the key in the mailbox. Since then, things have been quiet. She tried calling. I let it ring. Then I blocked the number. We've set up a custody schedule through the lawyer. Nothing official yet, but we're working towards something that doesn't involve us speaking unless absolutely necessary. She gets him on weekends right now. I get the rest of the week. And even then, I can tell she's trying to fix her image more than her relationship with him. She sends texts like, "Tell Miles I love him and please don't poison him against me." I don't respond. I've never said a bad word about her to our son. He's a baby. He doesn't need that weight. But I also won't pretend she didn't rip a hole through our lives. Miles is almost 2 months old now. He started smiling last week. It's not always on purpose, but when it is, it's unreal. He looks up at me like I'm the whole world. And I don't say that with pride. I say it with fear. Because I am his whole world right now, and I can't screw that up. Some nights, after I put him to sleep, I sit in the hallway outside his room just to breathe, just to exist in the silence and remind myself, you're doing this. You're really doing this. There are still bad nights. Nights where I feel like collapsing. Nights where I miss her, even though I don't want to. I miss the person I thought she was, the imaginary life I was holding on to. But that life's gone. And honestly, I think I'm better for it. I'm learning how to be a single dad. I'm learning how to cook with one hand and fold laundry at 1 a.m. and get through a feeding while trying not to cry from the weight of everything. But I'm still here, still trying, still healing. And every time Miles looks up at me and giggles, I feel a little less broken. I know I'll never get answers, not real ones. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the closure isn't about understanding her. Maybe it's about finally choosing myself and choosing him every single day.